Beginning 3 days ago, my husband refused to answer my calls while I was in labor, and my brother played a horrible prank. Now, my husband is furious, and I won't cut him off. My husband and I got in a fight prior to my daughter's birth a week ago, when he casually suggested a paternity test for our daughter when she was born. Now, to be clear, this was completely out of the blue, with no warning or reason. I mean, I'm a homebody who works remotely with no male friends other than my brother. I told him that he was accusing me of infidelity, and he said he just wanted to be sure, and kept bringing it up until I told him, after 3 days of him asking and the stress starting to make me physically ill, that I didn't want to talk to him and left to my brother's house. I called him while I was gone and tried to work it out, but he refused. After all of this, I went home the next day to grab some things while he was at work, and I went into labor. I called him 16 times before calling my brother, who called him another half a dozen times himself while on the way to pick me up and then on the way to the hospital. It was a horrible and traumatic birth. I started crowning in the car, and the doctor delivered my daughter in the back of my brother's van because I was too far along to move me, before rushing me in when I kept bleeding. It was horrible. I hated it all. My brother's wife, who is a nurse, even told me she honestly thought I wouldn't make it. I also opted for a hysterectomy, as it came to that, or something more dangerous. Only ever wanted one or none. But my husband wants a large family. I'm trying to bond with my daughter, but it's been hard. The point is that during this, while I was returning from surgery, 10 hours after I called, my husband finally responded and asked why I hadn't answered his call. However, my brother had my phone and was so angry that he said, "This is Opie's brother. I'm at the hospital. She didn't make it," and turned it off. My husband rushed over and got there when I had just woken up and started shouting until the security forced him out. And then didn't get to see our daughter either until the next day because I was mostly asleep, and apparently they needed my signature to allow him back. I like to imagine she was like... Now, my sister-in-law thinks it was horribly cruel, but that he deserved it. But my brother stands by his prank and says that he only gave my husband 10 minutes of the same fear he had felt at my side for 10 plus hours. Whenever he sees my husband, he also keeps telling him that I nearly died because we waited for him. My brother used to be mostly indifferent to my husband, but now he absolutely hates him. You can see it in his face whenever my husband enters the room. And he's been visiting a lot because he doesn't trust my husband to care for me while I'm still healing. My husband is furious that he won't apologize and that I won't make him, and yelled at me when I said that the only reason my brother had my phone was because he wasn't there. I am trying to be empathetic. I know he feels guilty. I've spoken to my therapist, and she says the apathy I'm feeling is likely general and not solely focused on him from lingering shock from the trauma. But they didn't say much about the prank. Okay, not a trained therapist at all, but did anyone else kind of find that a bit BS that, No, the reason you don't really care about the fact that your husband's clearly a careless prickly stick is because you've got trauma. See, it's your fault that you're feeling this towards your husband, not, how he's treated you throughout this pregnancy experience. But look, maybe there has been instances and moments where he has been genuinely there for her in this moment and really excited about the child, etc. Though with typical couple issues on Reddit, it's usually that moment where the OP does try to defend him, so that's not happening here, for once. My mother-in-law has been texting me to say that my family is horribly cruel for the prank and that I should go no contact with my brother, and now my husband is saying the same. I just don't know what to do. I'm not in a good headspace. It's been hard to be in the same room with my husband, and I've been sleeping in the guest room with my daughter. He brought up the paternity once, and I just exhaustedly told him to either get out of my face or go stay with his mum if he's planning on stressing me out even more. I really don't feel myself. And yes, I am taking the likelihood of PPD seriously, and my therapist who has suggested that it may be PTSD too. However, I just want more opinions because I just don't know. So that's the first half of things. Now we're just going to quickly look at some comments of what they are saying. There's some healthy discourse about the whole idea of what's valid in requesting a paternity test here. So yes, your husband sounds like a control freak and your brother sounds like a vindictive piece of schmidt. I worry about your family. That being said, I don't understand why women react so violently to the idea of a paternity test. The only reason you would ever be concerned about it is if you had something to hide. Then continuing on with not a very strong argument as to how it's the same as to be fearful of, drugs and being assaulted by men who spice your drinks. I don't think that's the equivalent thing, man. But the second a guy is offered a common sense protection like a paternity test, a test where the vast majority of the time there will be nothing wrong, and only a small percentage of the time the guy will be protected against someone with terrible intentions, women react incredibly violently. I mean, can't women just accept that it's okay to be suspected of something horrible every once in a while, so that, in this one case, men can protect themselves from a few truly heinous acts? So the end of that sentence kind of makes better sense as to what they're saying, and not the original meat of it all. Essentially, hey, ladies, why be so offended being asked for a paternity test? What, you don't like that people are suspicious that you're not someone who can be trusted or is safe, in a sense? Welcome to the man experience when we're around any woman who doesn't know us personally. Take how you will. Someone offers a rapport in different opinion. Probably used rapport in the wrong context there. Shut up, I'm learning words. I think it's far more emotional than just that. If you're with someone in a committed relationship and are having a child together, that is extremely intimate. It's supposed to be the most exciting time, or for people who want kids, and strengthens the relationship even more. It is not the same as women protecting their drinks at a bar from strangers. For a man to come at a woman and say he wants a test, with absolutely no history of cheating, is the equivalent of taking all the amazing memories, love, and trust built up over time, and throwing it down to say, I don't trust you. It sets off a chain reaction, and the first feeling to come up is betrayal. When you give someone everything you have, and they toss it back, it's sickening. It makes you question, how can you raise a child with that person if they don't truly trust you, because that's what relationships are built on. It's a total breakdown of the relationship from there. And so I feel it comes from just perspective and how you as a person take on such a request. To me personally, I see it as nothing more than just doing a prenup. It's not like you're doing a prenup because you don't trust your partner, it's just because of the legality of the matter. Of course, prenups do involve more of a mutual experience when you go through it all compared to a paternity test. There's only one person who could be untrustworthy in that sense, so maybe not the best example. And even then, this last point, where you as a partner feel betrayed, accused, whose insecurity about this is more valid here? The man who just wants to make sure that he's committing to this life with someone that hasn't been, a complete lie from the get-go, versus you, who feel like this man doesn't trust you. I mean, not wanting to be used versus wanting to be trusted. I leave that up to you. Yeah, anyways, we move on to the update, where we get some more answers, obviously an update to the situation. So let's just remember some things. The fact that he wasn't answering the entire time. Of all those calls he was getting, he was not answering them. It seems any communication he has with her results in shouting and yelling. She's only really been getting a child because she's, I guess, been pressured to and felt she had to be in this relationship. And her in-laws, husband's side of the family, just wants to isolate her, essentially, from this brother. A man who allegedly has always been there for her in her life. Who do you think she's gonna pick? So, I don't think this will be something we can come back from. Just don't think I'll be able to heal with him, because there is no way he didn't know it was me calling, and he still hasn't told me why he didn't answer. I know I thought I wouldn't decide right away, but I actually don't want to forget how terrible it was waiting on him, thinking he couldn't possibly leave me like that, no matter how angry he was. I took the time to think of that moment before it all went down, and just how grossly betrayed and scared and alone I felt while the contractions were hitting, and I was on my knees trying to breathe through the pain while waiting on the phone while it rang through. And I just don't think there's any coming back from that. I wouldn't want my daughter thinking it's okay to stay with a man who destroyed her trusts in that way either. I will be contacting an attorney, and will be meeting with them in the coming weeks. We had a prenup, so hopefully it won't be too hellish. I hope. I feel like this situation became even clearer when my friend asked me if I'd still trust him as the one to sign off on my medical papers, and the reaction to that idea was visceral. I wouldn't. And I want him to get off that legality as soon as possible. In fact, there are roommates I had in college who I would have trusted more. I would have never ignored so many calls from him consecutively unless I had told him expressively that I was unavailable at a specific time. And even then, I feel good with my brother and sister-in-law here with me, especially so with her being a nurse and having been there through the birth. It's really helped us bond in a way that we never really had time to. It's also finally told my old friends about the baby, and they are alternating to come and help me out for the next little while. None of this even touched the paternity test, but I'll get it for the proceedings, I guess. So I guess he'll get what he wanted. Anyway, I'm safe and well, and my daughter is healthy and happy as a peach, and pretty much an angel who is happy to sleep peacefully anywhere, and took the boob with ease, which is such a blessing since everything still hurts. Just making this decision has taken an odd weight off my shoulders, and my sister-in-law has really been helping us bond. Anyway, thank you for letting me write this out. I'm not good at diaries or journals, but writing to people feels different, and it's actually brilliant for the clarity of the situation. Even my therapist said that I seemed clearer and calmer. I might try a diary again, as she suggested. Top comment saying, I'm sorry, but also not. This is the best outcome. You and your daughter deserve better. And so you're getting into a bit of the sus territory. I looked at the original post in this one. Did your husband ever say why he didn't answer? Opie says, no. It's one of the things that added to this decision. He's been completely mum on it, and is just saying he didn't see them. How do you not see over dozens? Like, it was more than just a dozen. That's just on the brother side alone. So many missed calls on your phone. I genuinely hope the husband makes a Reddit post at some point. Just to, what, do you have something on your phone that just silences every notification? Come on. Also, your wife is clearly about to go into labor at some point. You'd be aware of it. It's I don't know if you can tell, mate. It's pretty obvious when a woman's heavily pregnant. So the fact you wouldn't even make sure to be mentally on call. In the compilation thread of these stories, we have some other top comments that are, yeah, anyone else suspicious there might be a side chick in the mix? Demanded a paternity test just to be sure for no reason. Ignored approximately 500,000 phone calls from his heavily pregnant wife and her brother. Yelled at his traumatized postpartum wife because of her brother's behavior. Do y'all think this motherfucker's side chick knows he's got a new baby? Biggest mic drop to this one. 100% bet he's been having an affair. That's where he was when she couldn't get a hold of him. And that's why he wanted a paternity test. Convinced himself she was cheating too, so he'd feel excused for his frickery. Yeah, there's no way it's not that or something equally gross in my mind.
Well, now, hey now, it could be a good old drug addiction or gambling addiction. Woohoo!
Meanwhile, some people also might point out that there's a problem on both sides here. So there's a lot of schmitty things here, almost all on the husband, but no one in 10 plus hours thought of sending a text. Hey, I'm in labor, going to the hospital, get your butt here. Maybe he's really angry, maybe he's cheating, but who nowadays can leave a text unread for an hour, let alone 10? Instead, oh, I've called 2 or 3 times and he didn't pick up. I know what will change his mind, another dozen freaking calls. To which, obviously, some disagreement, mentioning the point that we made earlier where he should have just been watching his phone anyway. But they are adamant to believe that, hey, we're not seeing both sides of the story here. And overall, they both failed in communication, resulting in this event to occur. And yes, if we wanted to take the lazy route of all this, we can just say,
Communicate better, guys. Oh, yeah, wow.
It's the copy and paste response to any sort of story on Reddit, really. But I think this story is a great example of how sometimes pulling a really terrible prank on someone can actually be a good thing. Yep, I'm endorsing that now. What do you think, though? You think these people are right to be theorizing it's an affair underlying this whole thing? Because, I mean, really, what if he did actually have a genuine reason? Let's consider if this prank is genuinely excusable. What if his phone did die? What if his phone was broken? And brother pulled this prank, he comes over to the hospital, he's enraged to find out it was a prank and all this kind of stuff. I suppose the difference here is that the husband has yet to make any actual valid reason as to why he wasn't on his phone. And so until we get that answer, we just have to assume that, yeah, he's the a-hole. Anyway, let's move on to the next story. This one, it's a blend of wholesome, maybe a bit problematic. I don't know, I'll leave it up to you. I'm leaving my wife tomorrow and I couldn't be happier. I'm a 45-year-old male and my wife, who's 44, have been married for 10 years. We've dated for 6 years before that, and I got a lot of pressure to get married from my parents, her Something in my gut just said that this wasn't right. I called it cold feet and did my best to ignore it. We got married. Pretty much the moment the ink was dry on our marriage license, things went south. On our honeymoon, she did nothing but complain I hadn't booked a nicer hotel. In the following months, she wanted a new apartment, a new car, gifts, jewelry, handbags. It was never enough. It's like the moment she got the ring, it stopped being about me, and it became about what I could give her. I am a doctor. I make good money, not good enough to support the kind of lifestyle she wants though. We don't have intimacy anymore. We don't laugh. We don't talk about anything but money. We have no kids. She said she wanted them before marriage, then changed her mind. Our home looks like a showroom. There is no warmth or joy or even comfort here. I hate it. I hate her. I am a 45-year-old physician, and I have barely enough savings to sustain us for 3 months. I want to retire someday. I want to enjoy my life. I rented a cool apartment across town in a less desirable neighborhood, and there's a stack of IKEA furniture waiting for me to set up there. The lease is up on the Mercedes my wife pushed me to lease next month, and I will be replacing it with a used Prius. I'm starting therapy next week. I have a divorce attorney who has assured me that the prenup we signed before marriage means I won't have to pay alimony. I hope to leave the higher-paying job that my wife insisted I take for something with less hours, sometime in the next year. I am going to ask out the pretty barista who flirts with me every morning. Yeah, mate, that's just a job. It's just a job, man. It's hospitality. Don't, you're taking it personally. I'm telling her first thing tomorrow. I'm expecting her to cry and beg and demand we try therapy. I don't want any of that. This was never right, and I'm only sorry it took me so long to realize it. I'm sorry I've wasted so much of my life being married to a woman because I thought it was the right thing. I'm so excited! Now I have absolutely zero understanding as to how relationships can be when you've been in it for 10 years. Never been that far. Can you not help but wonder if he's kind of jumping the shark a bit too enthusiastically? So my sister's a psychologist, and one thing she does mention, especially when it comes to relationship dynamics, especially for men, is that we collectively have developed a tendency for expecting things of our female partners over actually giving them something that entices them to reciprocate. It's that old age-old argument of expecting the other person to make the first offer. I just highlight this paragraph here, so, don't have intimacy anymore, don't laugh, don't talk about anything but money. They don't seem to imply that they've made any effort to actually talk about these kind of things, or maybe trying to make her laugh more, make her enjoy time with you more. When life gets stressful, we as humans have the tendency to just make other things fizzle out. I'm not saying she isn't equally responsible in these things and, maintaining the upkeep of the relationship, but I think it's also fair to respect the fact that men and women, on average, are different in a relationship. Women are more commonly ones to engage based on what they receive, while men commonly give, or at least are more obliged to give. Whether or not you think that's fair, that's a whole other discussion, but that is the statistical norm. So with that said, him already renting another place, ready to move out, pretty much set up his current life excitement being all about leaving, just throwing everything up in the air and saying, I'm out. I don't know, I'll leave that up to you. Do we think that's actually a respectful choice to make with your life? While you ponder that though, we'll go into the update of it all, the confrontation, where he does tell her what he wants to do. First of all, damn, I didn't expect the first post to blow up. I was really just getting it off my chest and expected a few good luck comments and not much more. I know a lot of people were asking for an update, so here it goes. Usually when I wake up, I go for a run or a bike ride. While I'm gone, my wife gets up, gets dressed, gets a smoothie going, whatever. This morning, I paced the kitchen, rehearsing what I had to tell her over and over again. When she finally came down, I felt oddly calm. I wasn't expecting to be panicked exactly, but apprehensive at least. I told her I needed to speak with her. She gave me an and didn't look up from the coffee machine. Then I just came out with it. I told her I was leaving and that I wanted a divorce, that we hadn't been happy in a long time, and I felt as though she didn't care about me or my emotional needs. Pretty much instantly, the gaslighting began. She cried that I never get her flowers anymore, that I don't do enough to support her, that I don't care if she's happy. I brought up the fact that I suggested therapy over a year ago, and she agreed, but then made excuse after excuse not to go. I brought up the times she completely ignored the budget we worked on. I told her how it made me feel when she dismissed me when I tried to tell her how I was feeling. The crying escalated. Then, along with begging for a chance to make this right, to go to therapy, that she would be better, it went like I thought it would go, and I felt absolutely nothing. I don't care anymore. Whatever I once felt for her is just dead and gone. And she might as well have been a second cousin sobbing about her marriage for all the connection I felt to it. Eventually, I just got fed up and walked out. She has been blowing up my phone with calls and texts, which range from angry to begging to threatening. I started getting calls from her mother, and mine too, but at the end of the day, I spoke briefly to my mother and calmly explained that I was sorry she didn't hear it from me. But my wife was sucking me dry financially and emotionally, and I couldn't do it anymore. She was surprisingly supportive. I'm currently in my new apartment. I unrolled the mattress in a box and went to Walmart for sheets. I ate Thai takeout for dinner at the kitchen counter and watched a bit of Netflix on my computer. I have everything I need for the next few days. My wife is getting served tomorrow. Keep expecting the sadness to set in, but it hasn't. I feel like 1,000 pounds are off my shoulders, and suddenly my future is full of possibilities. I'm going to travel. I'm going to try new restaurants. I'm going to take a job that actually makes me happy and proud instead of rich. Now, much to the internet's chagrin, I will ask out the barista, because despite unpopular opinion, she is both age-appropriate, it's her family's business, and I do have the interpersonal skills to recognize the difference between customer service and actual connection. Cheers, everyone! I'm going to have a beer and then take a walk around my new neighborhood. But it turns out that reasoning wasn't good enough, and so they had to make another whole little large comments to explain themselves a bit more about the barista situation. Alright, folks, I've gotten a lot of comments begging me not to ask out the barista as it's her job to be nice to me. I didn't really get into the relationship I have with her because I didn't think it was relevant to the divorce, but here goes. I met her about a year ago. She's 30. I don't usually wear a wedding ring because my job requires me to scrub regularly. She actually asked me out, invited me to a food truck festival in town, a few months into knowing each other. I said I was married, and she was embarrassed. Since then, we've had a bit of fun making a running joke going where she asks me, "So, still married?" My current plan is to reply, "Not for long," and see what happens. Now, I appreciate the internet's apprehension. In truth, I would probably say the same thing if I didn't know the backstory, but I promise I'm not a creep.
That's exactly what a creep would say.
Now, I laugh at these people's comments, but also, ouch. I want a divorce. You don't care if I'm happy. Actually, that's correct. Like, 100% we are on the same page there. You won't even try to fix things. Wow, exactly, right again. We're really vibing here. You're pushing me out of your life. Wow, simpatico. You only care how you feel in this. Wow, I almost feel hesitant leaving someone so smart. Almost.
Wow, they have a real shot at a long-term relationship vibing like that.
Absolutely. I expect them to stay divorced partners for a long, long time. And yes, such a true point. My man just exemplified what I always say. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. It seems to be what he truly felt at the end of the day. So with that update there, how does that change your thoughts about the original situation? We learned that he actually did be the one to try and make some effort into rebuilding things. But of course, it does depend how you executed such attempts to express and communicate. There's a difference between saying, "Hey, I miss doing those things that connected us. Let's go do that maybe later this week," versus, "We don't even do fun stuff anymore." Like, I mean, one is encouraging and invites the partner. The other one is just, accusatory. It makes you immediately become self-defensive. Either way, though, sounds like the relationship was out the door before the woman even knew it. Just like this video. Oh, segue into the closing credits. Thank you so much for watching. As always, you've been an amazing person to support me and digest this online stories. Thank you as always to those who share these stories with us to read and talk about. And if you enjoy listening to me ramble to you and ramble together in the comments, then please like the video, subscribe, do all those things that support a channel out. Otherwise, you be good, drink some water, very satiating? Hydrating, that's the word. Synonyms, I don't know them. Anyway, bye-bye, be good, love your face. Mwah.